That's right, you are now listening to Tommy Tom's One Mic. Warning, this podcast contains explicit language, triggering or sensitive topics, and controversial discussions. Thank you so much for tuning in to Tommy Tom's One Mic.
How many people you know can go from interviewing a stripper into interviewing a preacher right after? This guy. Hit the intro, folks.
Alrighty. And in 3, 2, 1. Hey guys, 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 hey guys. Welcome back to Tommy Tom and One Mic. I like the guy. Good friends.
You do not feel hampered at all by what life is throwing at you.
Yeah, man, the energy from the crowd is like so much. You can see that people are happy to be out and enjoying the music.
That reminds me, not fucked up, but how is your sexy mom?
What was it? The wife in the fridge?
The Keebler out with beer.
At one point in time, I lit a flare in my hands to attempt to stay warm. But
I feel you. That's why I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna be fuck it.
Let's hit the mic.
Welcome back, folks, to Tommy Tom and One Mic. I am, of course, Tommy Tom, and I am here to talk to you once more. And today I have a very fun interview for you guys with my boy Ryan. He's a former preacher, pastor, if you want to say. He used to live up here by me, moved down south, with his lovely family. And, I got to be honest with you guys. This one, it wasn't that it was a tough interview. It was that it was a very, dare I say, emotional interview. Now, you may not see it clearly because editing magic, but I will admit that throughout this whole interview, if you carefully watch, you might actually see that I'm tearing up. I wouldn't say crying, but I was very emotional inside, and I didn't understand why. And then I realized that probably the reason I was is because this is what I've wanted for so long. I just love having real conversations with people. Whether, I agree or disagree with maybe some of their political, social views, it doesn't matter. I just want to have those conversations because I don't think a lot of us allow ourselves to have those conversations. So I was very grateful for Ryan, offering his time and, trusting in me to, do this right by him. And, whether you all believe or not in a higher power or not, I don't judge. And neither should you judge someone for having those beliefs. I have a very religious background for anybody that actually knows me, but God knows I am not the best symbol for, being church going and being a good guy. And I don't pretend to be. But I think this is a conversation that needed to be had, and I wanted to share it all with you. So I hope, if not, maybe at least one person will get something from this interview. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful. So here's my interview with Ryan, and I hope you all enjoy. So what's up, Ryan? How you doing, man? How you doing? It's been a long time. No see?
Yeah, man. It has been, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think we talked during the dreaded 2020, and I think you were setting up to move down south from New York and all that. How'd that move go anyway for you?
It went really, really well, honestly. I got in kind of at the right time when it came to buying a home. I got in just before prices skyrocketed, so I made out pretty well with the exception of the interest rate. Got kind of screwed on that, but other than that, man, I'm enjoying life down south. Got a beautiful home, got a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful little girls. I really couldn't ask for more right now.
Oh, that's right, you're a girl dad. How are they doing?
They're awesome, man. My little one, she's about 10 months old now. She gives me a run for my money right now, but she's awesome. Both of them are great, man. I have a really, really good kids, and again, I couldn't ask for better daughters. I'm very, very grateful, and yeah, it's just cool. Me and my daughter went saw a movie yesterday. I played hooky, and enjoyed it.
Nice. Yes, you gotta have those little cheat days with the
Yeah.
family. That's sweet. And the wife doing well as well, I hope.
Yeah, she's great, man. My wife is my partner in crime, man. She's she's another incredible person, man. I just have an overall blessed life, and I'm pretty content with where I'm at right now, man.
Now we talked, before I hit the record thing, and I want to address it because I had you on before. We had a little bit of a limited kind of time frame to kind of work, so we just kind of like ran through it. But looking back, I didn't really get to dive in I guess you can say a little more into how you got into religion, I guess, and becoming. Do you consider it preacher, pastor? I don't know
I
what.
guess I would say preacher now because I'm not formally pastoring a church right now.
Yeah.
I kind of pass off my church to one of my good buddies back in New York when I moved down. So I guess a preacher, but I mean I do my podcast. I make reels. I kind of do whatever. So yeah, I guess
I guess it's more
we can go with
so
preacher.
a preacher. How did you, I guess, get into this religious background now that you have, or I guess, religious strength that you have found? Given that, as we also talked before, we may have known of each other, but I didn't really know you growing up. I think you were like a year or two younger than me. So I'd always see you in passing. I think we knew some mutual people. So sometimes I'd see you outside and all that. So then to see that you had started your own church and all that, and you found that, and I know your wife did kind of, if I remember correctly, your wife did kind of have a little hand in it as well. Your
Yeah,
partner.
she absolutely did. So I guess just kind of backing up from the beginning. So I didn't grow up in a religious household. My mom was like culturally a Christian, but no one was practicing, the beliefs. We weren't going to church. We weren't doing any of that. So this idea of God was kind of foreign in a lot of ways to me, and I really didn't actually even like Christians. I actually remember distinctly getting into arguments with Christians when I was in high school. I remember being drunk at a party and arguing with a Christian at this party, and I think God has quite the sense of humor, and he humbled me, and I kind of ironic, because your background has a little bit of played a role in kind of my conversion experience. So when I was pretty depressed in high school. I went through a pretty bad breakup, and I really didn't know how to handle it. And I was immature. I smoked a lot of pot. I was kind of lost and trying to figure things out. I'm fighting with my family. I'm fighting with my brother. I'm just in this place where nothing's quite working out for me. I don't have any prospects of what I'm going to do, when I graduate high school, which, we're told in school is like the end of the world if you're not going to a 4-year school, so I'm here feeling like a failure. I'm going to go to
And
community
you're not doing
college.
the quote unquote American dream or the
Yes.
American dream style of how it's supposed to go and that line. Oh no, you went a different way, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Hindsight, really, there wasn't anything wrong with not going to college right when I got out of high school. But when you're in high school, you don't see that. That the norm is you go to high school, you graduate, you go to college. Anyway, so that was kind of one of those things that were weighing on me, and then this conflict with my family. And one day, I'm in this. I worked at a farm home garden center, and I'm in this greenhouse. I'm kind of just thinking of my life and reflecting on the direction that it's going, and I'm cutting plants and kind of reflecting on my life and thinking about the direction my life is going, and I grow angry, man. I begin to grow angry, and I begin to start cursing out the God that I claim to not believe in, kind of blaming him for all my problems and my plights, and I left that greenhouse kind of just hopeless. No, any glimmer of hope that I had that God was real was just not there. It was gone. And I went home, and mind you, this whole day it had been cloudy out. And I went home, and someone that I was close with had a bag of psychedelic mushrooms. And they invite me to partake. I do. And about 30 minutes later, we decide to go for a walk. And I start getting really bad deja vu, like the moment that I experienced had happened before. And I start to head to this path behind my house, and the deja vu is getting more and more intense. And I walk under this tree, and these the petals fall from the tree on top of me. I wasn't tripping. That did happen. and and I'm going to the woods behind my house, and we get to the path, and we're walking down, and this feeling is getting more and more profound. And when we get to the middle of the path, I look up, and kind of the clouds part when I look up, and also not tripping. That actually did happen. And in that moment, I I felt God tell me that He loved me and that I was supposed to be a writer. And it was like this profound moment that kind of just brought me to my knees. And I'm kind of having this surreal experience, kind of just blown away. And I get up from the path, and I start walking away from the path, and I hear God tell me one more thing. And He says, "I'm sorry for what's going to happen to you." And after that moment, I started to struggle with what some people would call as drug induced psychosis. So I started to believe a lot of things that were not real, and this persisted for several months, man, and it only increased in intensity. And finally, I had a kind of a breaking moment, and I ended up kind of getting help for that and moving down to Long Island and kind of changing my life. And I was in Long Island for about 6 months. Yeah, after I felt like I was in a good place, I decided to leave Long Island and go back upstate and attend Sullivan County Community College. And while I was in college, I was taking a sociology class, and I'm kind of just thinking about religion and kind of the role that this experience that I had. And at this time, I had believed, God is real, but I didn't believe He was the God of the Bible. Actually, there was one point where I said, "Yeah, I will never read that disgusting book." That was something that I actually said. But I believed that God was real, and I wanted to know who He is. So I decided to take the semester off and find God. And that's when I met my wife, who was telling me about Jesus. And I thought she was nuts. I thought she was crazy, but I also thought she was really cute. So I gave church a shot. And I was, attending at church for about 2 weeks before I knew like I was in the right place. There was even a moment too where I was in a church service, and I'm thinking to myself in my head, man, am I in the right place? And as I'm thinking that, somebody puts their hand on my shoulder and says to me, "You're in the right place," at that exact moment. And it was just like, okay, yeah, all right. I hear you, Lord, loud and clear. I'm in the right place. And the rest is kind of history after that, man. And one of the things that I kind of struggled with for a long time, I have actually not been very public with this story in years. And I think one of the things that I struggled with for a long time was this idea that people would discount my experience as, "Oh, that kid was just on drugs. That's why he believes in God." And and that's what I thought for a little bit too. And but the more and longer I've been on this journey, I've seen God's hand show up in ways that I haven't done drugs since 2008. So it's been over 10 years. I've just seen God show up time and time and time again in different avenues of my life to show me that He's the real deal. And it's changed my life, man. From meeting my wife, to the school that I went to starting a church, to just things that have happened in my life that I could not explain rationally, with no other way than God's hand kind of guiding my life. And that's kind of how I felt for the last, or since 2008, that God has been guiding my life in a very specific direction. And I've been as sensitive as possible to where He's leading me each season of my life. And that has ultimately led to me to where I am today. And I don't regret it for 1 second, man.
Oh, I mean, I get it. I mean, look, I'm kind of, I guess you can say, I was the opposite. I was adopted and raised through a religious background. My whole base is religion. You know, uh, for me, I guess when I was growing up, I realized that because of that, it was a lot harder for me to get through to people because, like you said, there's a certain mentality. If people know your background is a religious base, you're the kid that couldn't curse, couldn't drink caffeinated soda growing up and stuff. It's almost that kind of thing. Like you don't know what life is, so what are you gonna tell me? Unfortunately, I took a much in return. I was like, all right, screw it. I'll just become a giant, learn my language the fuck up, I guess you can say, in my own way. That was my way of dealing with it, and I definitely had a big fall in that. But I can never deny that's always something for me. I was like, and what I usually tell people, if, like you said, is it verbatim the Bible God directly like that and stuff like that? For me, it was always like there's something out there. There's always more. And I do find it funny with the psychedelics things because yeah, that would be something people would be like, oh yeah, this guy, oh he ate some shrooms and then he saw God. Okay, yeah, I've heard that story before or something like that. Look, I'm not proud of it. I've done plenty of psychedelics, and one of the things I've always told people because people, they knew, so sometimes if it was going to be the first time, they would ask me questions, and one of the things I would tell them is, don't do it unless you're comfortable with yourself because you're going to see another part of yourself. Because a lot of those psychedelics were meant for bipolar or schizophrenia or stuff like that. That's what they were initially created for. But as humans, we sometimes abuse certain things. So my interpretation is, I think for that it might have been just that first moment that you were able to let go of all those free free thoughts that you had. This is like that was kind of like your time to actually open up. So you actually got to hear things and feel things that maybe you never considered feeling or realized that you may have heard or felt before. And I think that shouldn't be something frowned on. I think you found that, you turned your life around. That should be praised, not looked.
And one of the things that I just do want to clarify is that by no stretch of, so I believe that one of the things that makes God, I mean, all powerful is that he can take something evil. And what I did, make no mistake, it wasn't good. It wasn't right. I shouldn't have done it, and I paid, man. I paid for it.
Yeah.
But he can take something, a mistake like that, and he can work it together for good. It doesn't mean that we intentionally go seeking to make the mistakes, but if we do and we are genuinely repentant, we're genuinely sorry that we did it, and we genuinely turn to him, he can turn that situation around. And that's what he did for me. He turned that situation around because I had this aha moment. And I like to say that, like, there's a lots of ways to God, all ultimately lead to Jesus being the only way to God. But I mean, like, you can speak to God through prayer. You can connect with God through reading scripture. And what I did was I tried to take like a back door, and you're not supposed to go through the back door.
No.
The bad things happen when you go through the back door. And I honestly too, like, this might sound a little out there to people that maybe don't have a religious background, but I actually think like what I did was kind of tap into the demonic in a way, something, a spiritual realm that I was not supposed to tap into. And that's why I got flooded with like kind of the negative thoughts and negative things that kind of came with that. And God was desperately trying to get me out of it. Once I was in it, and he ultimately did, thank God. But yeah, I definitely do not recommend taking that route to find God.
Yeah.
Go to church, read your Bible.
It was finding that light in the darkness and stuff. Sometimes, we have to fall, flat on our asses just so that, maybe we humble ourselves to a different answer. And I think that's important. I think, that's something maybe a lot of people that do have issues with religion, it's that humbling aspect of, all right, maybe you don't have to believe exactly what I believe,
but don't be so dismissive of maybe what I'm saying, because maybe there's something there for you. And
Yes.
that's the important thing. If like during high school, I don't know if we talked about this. I used to go to seminary classes
Okay.
every morning. So I would be up at 4:30, go half hour the opposite direction of our high school to Middletown, go there, have seminary from 6 to 6:30, where each year it would be we would focus on a different book. Uh, so Old Testament, New Testament. And because I was raised in the Mormon religion, then we also had the Book of Mormon and a thing called the Pearl of Great Price, which is kind of like, I guess you can say, the history book of uh, Joseph Smith and the formation of the church. And it was always funny because I remember, I think it was my freshman year when I first started it. Uh, I'd be in our last class and I'd be half awake. And I remember a teacher like getting on me. She's like, "I don't know why you're so tired. Why are you so tired?" I was like, "Well, if you really want to know." And I said that. And I remember the whole class just being kind of shocked because at the time I was also known as the kid that smoked weed. I was that. And like, but he's also doing religious class. And so I was like, yeah, you know, uh, I'm not perfect and all that, but I know one of the big things I always took from church was like, you can't play church. You can't play God. You can't like fake it so much and all that. If you're doing that, you're not going to get the full basis of that. And I was very honest with people in church and all that. In the Mormon religion, you're expected to serve a mission when you graduate. And I think since I was 12, I was like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't because I say I didn't believe, it was that I did believe, but I wasn't going to be the best representation because I knew how I was living my life. I knew the choices I was making and stuff like that. And I didn't want that to be the reflection, I guess, of the message. I I guess you could say, in turn from when I was the kid that was like, I don't want to be the goody good kid because that's going to ruin, because no one wants to listen to the goody good kid. As I got older, I realized, oh no, I kind of screwed up. That now it's the opposite, and so it was like finding that balance. And that's one of the things you got to live with those mistakes you made at a younger thing and just move forward and hope that there are those that can look past all that. And if
Yeah.
they can't, hey, that's fine. I can't be angry about that. I made those choices.
Yep. I think that too, that's part of owning, what you've done. If people can't look past, I did what I did, and, I know God doesn't hold it against me. I certainly don't hold it against me. And I look back at it as a moment in time where God reached me in a desperate situation and got me on the right path. And, people want to judge me for that or look down on me, so be it. But I know where I'm at today, and I know who I am today, and I know the work that God has done in my life, and it has just been nothing short of incredible. A night and day difference, man. Night and day, completely different person. When like you hear, people say that they're a new creation in Christ Jesus. No, I'm literally not the same person. Like I changed from the inside out, and I live my life radically different than how I used to. And I'm content with the life that I live now, and I try my best to do what is right and to model this thing well. Obviously I don't do it perfect all the time, but I certainly try, to practice what I preach and be the best representative of Christ that I could possibly be.
Little parallels at times. Like I would just see you at random and then I can see you now, the confidence, you're a little more uh there's a more pride. Like I and that might be the New York thing too. I mean, sometimes we're just down up here,
We
like
can't shake it, man.
yeah, yeah, But I can see it, like even when you were still up here and just the change in your life, you make that. And that's the biggest thing for me, I think. It doesn't matter how you get it. When you can find that peace in your life, whatever means that is, do that. And if it's and hopefully it is a very positive. And you know what? If religion was your way, I see nothing wrong with that. And I think anybody that may have a problem with that, I think that's more of a reflection on maybe their own personal issues as opposed to what you're doing. It's more so what they're going through as opposed to what you're going through. Because it's easier to point at you than to point at yourself. Point at somebody else than to point at yourself. Because then then there's like this almost guilt or shame
Yeah.
when there shouldn't be. You should be able to point at yourself, point at your mistakes, and be like, all right, yeah. I mean, I remember people saying that I was arrogant. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that still say I'm arrogant and all that. And I used to get so mad at that because I always felt I was so self-conscious and all that. Then as I got older, I started realizing, now I get it. I can get why people do that because maybe I put on an arrogant defense or something, or how I talk sometimes might just come across like that because I am very self-conscious of myself and you know, have those insecurities. So I have some very measured in how I respond and talk to people and try and explain certain things. So I can see how that may come down as condescending or something like that. When it's like, no, that's I'm hurt just as much as you are, or something. You sometimes just want to say to somebody.
I wish I could kind of get into everything like that he's done over the years, because I've just, I see these threads, that he connects. Even my connections with like other people, like I see more that nothing's quite by accident, that there's a reason, that maybe me and you are even having this conversation right now. I've seen that more and more prominent, the older I get, that kind of how everything is threaded together in this beautiful, intricate story that God is telling, and we're part of it. And I'm excited to be in this season of my life, and I'm excited to see what he has next for me, because there are some things that I do believe that I'm supposed to do, and I think this is kind of the season where I'm stepping more into that. One of those things, the very first thing that I was told that I would do is be a writer, and that's something that has been more prominent in me this year than any other year. And I'm actually now, putting the pen to the paper and doing that work. And it's kind of just cool to see that happen full circle. And I'm excited to see where that leads too.
No, man, I'm excited for you. It's always a journey, this self-reflection. As cliche as that may sound, to look at yourself and all that. But I always give kudos to those that you can look into, I guess, that abyss within yourself and be able to come out and find some light to kind of like figure it out. Just in my life and based on choices I've made and people I've interacted with, I definitely have met people that it just seems like they just can't. They can't get out of their own way, and it becomes frustrating, as someone who probably cares maybe too much sometimes, or it's like what can you do? What can you do? But at the end of the day, it is on the individual to make that choice. Like, sure, you may have ended up in that church because of your cute wife,
Yeah.
but you stayed because of you. It doesn't matter how cute she was at that point.
Yeah.
You stayed. And
Yeah.
that's the telling part.
Yeah. I'm glad I did, because I walked in there too, and it just was different than anything that I'd previously conjured up in my mind. Because my only frame of reference for the church, it was really bad, but my only frame of reference for the church was like the Westboro Baptist Church, so that's what I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
when I thought of church, man. I thought like, oh, those people are kind of crazy. Like, I don't want to be like that. But then I discovered, no, that's not that's a very poor representation of the church, and the church is much bigger and much more profound and much more beautiful than I had previously ever thought. And I leaned into that, man, and ultimately, I ended up going to study theology in Tulsa, Oklahoma, man, and spent 2 years there and learned a lot. I did get to go on some mission trips too, which was pretty cool.
No.
So that was kind of a life-changing thing too, to see kind of God's hand at work in these other countries, and to see how he uses, missionaries to kind of bring about the good news of the kingdom and help people that were in need. So I've been on like 3 of those. That's been dope. Did you ever actually go on a mission?
No, no. At that point, I think that was after college was probably my darkest point. That's when I really went into psychedelics. I was just raging. And it took a while for me to deal with those thoughts of suicide, if I'm honest, probably in like 7th grade, that's where I made like as a young kid made the determination that that's how this story is going to end. Just set in stone. And so I just kind of went through life just with that in the back of my head. And when you have that, you don't actually enjoy life. You don't take in everything. You're just kind of going through, and you take a lot of things for granted. And like I said, I have a lot of things I can regret, but I'm not going to regret them. I can't go back and change those. All I can do is move forward and be better than the a-hole I was in the past. For me, and like I said, I didn't want to fake it.
Yeah.
If I went on a mission, it would have just been kind of like what we were talking about. Go to college. The basic things: go to high school, go to college, get married, have kids. That was the line for me. It was growing up. It was graduate high school, go on a mission, come back, go to BYU, and do whatever.
Brigham Young University, is that?
Yeah. That's the big Mormon church and whatnot. And the thing was, like, I never had issues with the Mormon church. Like, one of the benefits, and I think people don't know this, is like we don't have a set preacher or something. Like, our members talk during our I guess you can call it our sermons or whatnot. Like, there would be times my family would be the ones to speak. So we would sit up there and each one of us would go up, and it would be like a specific topic, where it would be like, all right, so you guys are going to talk about repentance, and we would share scriptures and our own personal experiences and stuff like that. So there was a lot more interpersonal, and I'm very grateful for that, because I went to other people's churches. I went to a Catholic church and stuff like that, and it's just being talked to. So there's not as much personal, I guess you can say, when it's like a super established kind of like religion and stuff. Like, I think for you kind of like talk about it. It's like I kind of want to come at it a different way, not kind of like it wasn't by the books when you think about what church religion would be. And that was a blessing to me in a way of like, okay, there's other ways to do that. Like I said, I'll never question my faith in God. It's just always a work in progress of getting myself out of the pit that I put myself into. But self put in there, and and it's a slow journey for me, but slow and steady wins that race, and that's what I'm doing.
I think you have the right frame of mind right now, though, because like it's not like a lot of people when they find themselves in bad situations, they tend to blame other people for their own shortcomings. But it seems like you own your shortcomings, and I think that is kind of one of the key indicators of somebody that truly has a repentant heart. You own what you've done. You take responsibility for what you've done, and you're not making any apologies for it. And I think that's good. And I'm kind of glad your story is where it's at right now, man. That it didn't end in suicide, because that would have been tragic, and that you're still alive to kind of have these conversations and share kind of a little bit about what you've been through. I think that's cool.
Yeah, it's funny you said repentance, because I think probably in my entire life that was always the toughest thing for me. Like accepting forgiveness from God for the things I did, because for me it was like I was aware I was making the bad choices. So like whether it was smoking, the drugs, all that stuff, there was always in the back of my mind, just because of my religious background. It's like, this is not the right choice I should be making, but I'm making it. So it was like I was condemning myself. But
that goes back to uh, not valuing my life, you know? So it was easy for me to do that. So because I made that choice, it's always been that was probably the biggest thing I always had issues with. Was like, I don't know if I want to ask God for forgiveness because I don't think I deserve it. And that will probably be my continual battle. That's probably the toughest battle I have of kind of forgiving myself for those. It's not so much that I don't forgive myself, it's that I know I made a mistake and I almost want punishment for it. And I feel like if I don't get punished for it, I got off too easy. And there's a part of me that doesn't want to get off easy.
Well, I would just say this, man. So when we sin or when we fall short, there's always natural consequences to what we do. Even if, or even when God does forgive us, we still have to live with the natural consequences of what we've done. I had to live with the natural consequences of what I've done. I had issues because I abused drugs. I had that problem and I had to live with it. Even though I was forgiven, I still had to live with that. And I still do. To a little bit to this day. And I think that's probably something that you should keep in mind. But you don't want to live with like eternal consequences. And you don't want to live with those consequences. And I think too, there's really nobody that's like too far gone for God. Nobody, like if God could find me and save me from the pit that I was in, surely he could do that for you. Surely he could do that for anybody who genuinely seeks him with their whole heart. And I think one of the problems that we have really ultimately doing it is that we have a hard time kind of this idea of surrendering our own will to his will and kind of living the life that he has for us. But I'm at this point now in my life where I try living life on my own terms, my own way, and it doesn't typically go well. and I think when I'm doing things God's way and I'm kind of following his lead, it's just a much more adventurous experience. Every time I've said yes to the things that God has had in my life, it's just been an adventure, man. It just has. Who can say that they saw an elephant on the side of the road and paid $5 to ride it? But I can say that because that actually did happen. Who could say they went through crazy valleys in Nepal and visited this far off remote village. That's part of my journey. Who could say that that God has blessed them with a wife beyond what they actually deserve? Well, I can say that, man, because God's plans are better than my plans. If I had it my way, man, I don't know where I would be. Honestly, I really don't.
I think that's the thing of just like you got to have that that keyword faith that things will work out the way it will. And even I think for me it's not that I don't believe God will forgive me. I know he will. That's my faith base. It's me getting over that great sin of pride of me forgiving myself for what I've done and stuff like that. And that will be always the journey. That will always be the journey. We all have that vice or sin that seems to be the thing that we got to battle the most. And for me, it's definitely pride. It's definitely pride. Uh, Despite being such a insecure person, pride is apparently the thing. I've realized that for myself personally. So that's why I used to blame people for stuff. I used to get mad at everybody for if something was going wrong. I was like, why can't you just do that? And I'm sure people still think I'm that way, but it's always funny. Like I know there's a lot of we talked before that I've definitely cut a lot of people out of my life up here, and I am certain they think probably the worst. Actually, I know they do because I get to hear. It's a small town. You get to hear everything people say and stuff like that. So I already know what they think, and it's so funny when other people bump into me. They expect a certain thing, and it's just me calmly being like, "No, it's like this," and it's like I understand why they're mad. I completely get it, and it's not that like I'm unwilling to talk about it. I'm willing to talk about it when they're in a position, or not even in a position. They have that open mind and heart to actually
listen. And it's not, they realize I'm not pointing the finger at you. I'm looking at my life and realizing if I keep doing this, I'm just going to get worse and worse. And I need to get better
Yeah.
for myself. And for much of my life, I never focused on myself
Yeah.
because of those thoughts and stuff. And for me to get better, I need to, in some ways, become a little selfish in people's eyes, in that I have to uh, take care of me.
Yeah.
And that might rub some people the wrong way, but it's what I got to do.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily selfish to separate yourself from people that kind of don't share your vision or share your ideals. I think, in fact, a lot of times that's a good thing to do. There's this principle in the Bible about being unequally yoked with somebody,
Mm.
and I think that applies more than we think. In our relationships, in our workplace, in our friendships, and honestly, it's something that I make priority in my life. I try to surround myself with people who are, just as ambitious or more ambitious than I am, that generally have the same, theology and perspective on the Bible and religion. And we link arms, man, and storm the gates of hell together, man. And I need people like that I can count on.
I like that. You know what? And I think that is a great breaking point. I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'd like to get more into the religious talk with you a little more and continue this great conversation with Ryan. But we'll be right back after these messages.
All right. Well, I'll put it this way: what was your most satisfying, I guess, performance or something?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I've over the last several years, I've become not better, but like I think that I've grown a lot in my performance ability. So I'm tend to be proud of myself a lot more than I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them I think was Little Mermaid this year. I was Flounder.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, there you go.
That's too easy. I'll just let that one slide.
Uh-huh. It has become very clear over the last 2 decades that I'm not the ingenue. I'm not the Disney princess. I'm not, I'm a character actor. I get to be the sidekicks and the, whatever. So Flounder for me was actually a lot of fun.
Raise Up Smash Therapy is nestled nicely in its space in the Bronx, New York, and highlights that sometimes the best things are the simplest. In the waiting room, you'll get the chance to hang out and suit up in some protective gear before you enter your quote-unquote therapy session. Whether it's a bat, golf club, or whatever the staff may have lined up for you for that day, don't be afraid to let loose and go a little crazy on all that breakable stuff that will be nicely lined up for you for your therapy session. And much like the establishment itself, Raise Up has 2 smash rooms with their own unique aesthetic, highlighted by the graffiti art and albums scattered throughout that show Raise Up's ties with the city it was raised in.
And we're back. Don't worry, Ryan. I did not put the preview of my interview with the stripper for this commercial break, but I probably put the one with cause on there. But I think that's the blessing of where I'm at now in my life, is that I'm just talking to anyone and everybody, because you only live life once. I want to see the world. I've been very sheltered, and I think we talked about our hometown. It's always called it a black hole. It always
Yeah.
seems to like suck you back in, and you're just like there trying to get out, and then every time you think you do, you're just back into it. That was the hometown mentality. It's like that. But I've enjoyed, and I think I had this conversation with one of my college friends, and I was like, for some reason, I find myself having these more intimate and in-depth conversations with people who I just
when I was doing stand up just randomly, just people that I just meet, that it's like there's no preconception of who I am. There's no preconception of who they are. So we can come into this on an equal playing ground. And that taught me that's how I need to go in with most people. I don't come in with any preconceptions of anyone. And I think that goes back to my religious background of I'm not going to judge anybody who believes or doesn't believe, who might have their things. My goal is just to express, I guess you can say, my love for them,
Yeah.
regardless of how they may feel towards me or themselves. Let most people know that no, that we are not as I had to learn. You're not alone. If you look, there will be a hand out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Something you've learned firsthand. I am certain of.
Absolutely, man. God has been kind of directing every step of my life, and it's kind of been a wild journey for me too. Even theologically, man, I've changed a lot, from when I first graduated, yeah, Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, till where I'm at now. Actually, to be real with you, I kind of don't align a lot with mainstream Christianity in the sense of my theology. I would say I probably maybe some of what I believe that would maybe be considered like heretical. Um,
Mm,
and I would say I'm probably more radical for my faith than most people, and more zealous, because I take the Bible kind of at the word. Like I use scripture to interpret scripture. That's so when I read something, I'm like, well, that's what it says, and
yeah, yeah.
and this is how I can explain what it says, and that perspective rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but and people get upset about at me, but I didn't write that. That's what it says. I didn't say it. Don't shoot the messenger, man. I'm just telling you what I see in the actual scriptures, and I think probably about 2017, man. I was working for a pretty big church. I was a youth pastor. I was like a kid in Disneyland, man. I was like super excited. I'm working for this, mega church essentially, and I'm doing kind of what I dreamed to do. And I saw behind the curtains, man, and
You saw the sausage was made, and
yeah, it was not what I thought it would be, and I saw a little bit of corruption, and things that just kind of gave me pause. Now, it didn't cause me to doubt the church as a whole, but some of, I guess, the small lowercase c churches, that I don't think were accurately, following Jesus's lead. A lot of churches out there making a name for themselves and not making a name for Jesus, which is what we're supposed to be doing. And once I was out, man, it was kind of like some of these scales started to fall off my eyes, and I started to see kind of some of I guess I saw Oz, man, and I was like, this is not consistent with what I see in scripture, and it challenged me, man, and it was kind of the push I needed to start my own church. But I'm starting my own church though with with only really one frame of reference for how church ought to be done. There's something in the church world called ARC, and it's called like Association of Related Churches. And they basically give you a model, and you can join this. And if you join ARC, you're in this community, and they give you like a step-by-step plan on how to plant a church with like a 90% success rate, and like down to how many pens and pencils you have to have at your first church service. Very well-oiled machine this organization is. But I started going to some of these ARC churches, and I started noticing that all of them are preaching the same sermons. like almost verbatim. Then I found out that some of these pastors, man, they're literally getting like canned messages, and all just preaching the same thing. So there's this series that these churches would do every summer. It'd be At the Movies, and I could go to a church, in Middletown, and they'd be doing a series At the Movies. I could go in Fishkill, they'd be doing that same series At the Movies, and you just saw, and I'm just like, this is like cookie cutter. This is not this doesn't seem right to me.
And for somebody coming in, because you didn't have that base, you're open for more nuance, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
And realizing that it's not as simple as we do. It's always open to interpretation.
Yeah.
You could read a passage in the scriptures one time, think one thing. You could maybe give it a little time. You read it again, and you can apply it for something else. That's how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to be able to look at that and all that. Like, it was always like kind of that thing they would say, like, you have a problem, just if you open the Bible to a random page or something. I remember that as like a kid or something. You just can open it, you can find something. You can find something there and all that. For me, I cheated. I always went to parables because that was just the easiest one for me. Just like go through, be like, this is like, I know this is rhetoric and this is all the setup. But no, I completely get that. I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you is, like, now that you have this religious background and, now that you're down south, I guess this would be more applied for like up here, for like people that knew you. How did you go about, I guess, maybe not so much giving advice, but just talking to people, and maybe them having a conception of you or of religion and stuff, and like, I guess not getting frustrated by it if like maybe the message wasn't getting through to them.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a little frustrated at times. There's definitely, some people that are out there to push your buttons, and sometimes they do that well. And I try to respond with as much, grace as I can. But again, I'm a dogmatic guy, man. I'm very, kind of when it comes to scripture. If I see something in scripture that just seems glaringly obvious, I'll just point to what scripture says, and if they disagree, my thing is like, show me a Bible verse. But with people I specifically know, I try to just live my life in a way that is reflective of how Jesus lived. And a lot of people, it's actually more off-putting to a lot of people than more people dislike me than like me. And but I do think that's kind of par for the course, man. I mean, Jesus wasn't able to. The people in Jesus' hometown didn't receive him. The people that knew him, and I think that kind of rings true for a lot of people, is that the people closest to you, they know your background, they know your history, and it's easy for them to kind of dismiss what you did, what you're doing. And that in a way happened to Jesus. The people in his hometown didn't hear his message. So I just try to live my life as consistent with what I believe to be true as humanly possible. And if they have questions, man, I'll answer their questions as long as it takes. And I'll be that guy that if you're struggling or you need I'll be there to pray for you. I just don't say that. Like, if you called me in the middle of the night and needed prayer, needed advice, I'd be there. I'd show up. I put my money where my mouth is, but I also don't sugarcoat things. So if I see like, someone's doing something like brazenly sinful, I'm going to say, hey, like, you got to stop doing this. Because it's going to land you in a place that you don't want to be. And I've been there. So yeah, I would say, success rate of winning over, people close to me, not particularly high. Winning over strangers, much easier. It's been a much easier experience. But there have been people, man, that I definitely know that they trust me and that they can find me. I can't claim to know what their personal relationship with God is like. I don't, but I know I had one buddy, man. His mom called me,
No.
and this is why I was a pastor. His mom called me and told me, like, my son needs help. He's struggling with drugs. I need you to come to my house. I came to my house and I prayed with that family. I stuck with that family. I ministered to that family, and within a year, that person turned their life around, man, and kind of started correcting course. So it's things like that I kind of stand on and look back at and see God's hand kind of working through my life to reach other people's lives. And I tend to focus on those things rather than focusing on the people that don't want to hear what I have to say or accept what I have to say. Because my mindset is, if I present to you what I believe to be true, and you reject it, I'm not going to chase you down. I said what I said, and if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to believe it. But this is what I believe, and I'm not going to compromise what I believe to make you feel better. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you what I believe to be true, even if it hurts sometimes, man. Because sometimes we do at church, or that not that church, that truth.
That
and
truth, yeah.
I think Christianity as a whole has painted Jesus in kind of two extremes. So, like, I think kids growing up in like the 70s and 80s and maybe early 90s had like this fire and brimstone message where like, everything you do, you're going to hell, and that was a message, and they didn't really talk about God's grace or God's love. But now the pendulum has kind of swung in the other direction, and that's kind of all that's talked about, and they're missing this whole other side of God. God is loving, but he's also just. Those two go in tandem. God saves us, he has grace to save us, so that we turn from our sin, turn toward his ways, and start modeling our behavior off of him. Not so that we can stay kind of in this, I guess, defeated mindset and continue doing what we've been doing, that's ultimately leading us to a place that we really don't want to go.
And you see, I think that's why it's important to have the conversations, because when you say, there is a stereotype when you say you have a religious base. I think back to when I was in rehab. You have your step programs and all that. I just remember when there's always those group of people that when it comes to how you're going to say, I'm going to trust in my higher power, I'm going to trust in God, I'm going to do that, and I would listen to them, and I'd be like, okay, but you're only doing half the step, because I remember both reading it in the scriptures, and then being there in Detox. They had just that one story, and I'm sure there's plenty of different versions. I don't like to, I'm not going to pull out the Bible and read it verbatim. I'll give a verbatim thing of just like, a man falls into a hole, right? And he's praying to God, please, I need help and all that. And the guy comes by and he's like, hey, I'll help you out. He's like giving him his hand. And the guy in the hole's like, no, it's okay. God's got me. I prayed. He's going to come and get me and all that. The guy's like, oh, okay. He goes, another guy comes, sees him in the hole. Hey, I'll help you. He's like, no, don't worry. I prayed. God's going to come. God's got me. He's going to get me and all that. And, this continues, and eventually the man dies. And he's at the gates. He's like, God, I prayed. I wanted you to help me. Why didn't you help me? He's like, I sent you all those guys. They were offering their hand. That was me trying to help you. Like, sometimes I think people take it way too literally.
Yeah.
In the sense of that. And they don't realize there's always going to be a human aspect that you have to consider in there. God's not going to, if you actually read the Bible and all that, that would have been the other plan, as I'll put it, in a sense of, we're going to come down, we already have the script, you do this, do that. You don't have that free will. The whole point of us, for me, from where I was, is to have that free will to make those choices, because we have to go through imperfection to get to perfection. That's my own personal belief. You have to go through all that fire and brimstone just to get through, because that's going to make you stronger. That's going to give you a better understanding. And that was the whole point. I don't know where your base was. I know for me, we were taught this thing called the veil, which is like, before we come down, we generally know what's going to happen to us.
And when we pass through that veil, we're going to forget it. We're going to live our lives down here. So I always took that as like, so you're saying that before I came down here, I knew all the bullshit I was going to have put myself through, all these tragedies and all that. But I still made that choice for some reason to come down and deal with all that. Why? And for me, I think that's my biggest reason for probably keep going. It's like, I got to know why I decided to go through all this and still be here. And I want to see that end. That before I came, I believed in so strongly that I would go through all that. And that's just, once again, that was one of my personal things. I don't know what your thoughts might be on that.
That's kind of profound, man. I've never heard that. It did bring me back to like this one scripture in the Bible where God says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." And I always ask that question: well, if God knew us, did we know Him? And is there something that that maybe has been concealed from us that we aren't fully aware of yet? And two, I think of there's like a scripture that says, "In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God." Well, wouldn't we be ultimately part of that word, because he spoke everything into existence? So then would we essentially kind of have existed already in God's mind before we came into the world? This is like really abstract, but it is kind of profound, there's been moments too, man, where I don't really know how to explain this, but it's like I got flashes. Like if imagine you're playing a movie in fast forward at like the fastest speed possible. It's like that happening to me. I got flashes of moments that happened in my life into the future, man. It sounds trippy, it sounds weird, but then I find myself in those moments. Like that has happened where I've been living out moments that I've already seen. So, it does give some credence to this idea that that's theoretically possible, that God has shown us the story before, and maybe we've forgotten it, and we're kind of just living this thing out and trying to make sense of it all. And ultimately, he's trying to. The way I view God is he has like this. There's a parade happening, and we're all in the parade. And God has the eagle eye view of where we are in the parade. And he's watching us from the beginning and the end. And he's trying to kind of gently nudge us into the right direction. And then it's up to us whether or not we're going to follow his lead or follow our own will. And I think he warns us if something bad is going to happen to us. He gives us some of that insight. I think that's part of the reason that we get deja vu is, it's little warning signs, that you might be steering off course or going in a direction that might not be conducive to what God ultimately wants for you.
That, I think, going to church, that was just something that really caught my attention, and that's why kind of like what you were talking about earlier. It's like it almost seems like there's these weird ties that you sometimes see in life, and it's like, oh wow, like how did that all like just us meeting randomly and stuff, and now being able to sit here and have this conversation. It's like there's just these weird little bindings in life that we'll never be able to really explain. Probably there's how sometimes things work out. It was just that day your wife was preaching religion to you, like she just happened to be there. She just happened to be there, and it's like perfect timing.
Yeah.
Or was it fate? That's kind of the thing.
The cosmic threads. This is kind of, it might seem a little bit unrelated, but no. Bear with me for a second. So I spend a lot of time on Twitter, probably more time than I should. And I was watching this debate between these two people, this comedian named Owen Benjamin and this guy named Bryson Graham. And this guy, Owen, says something weird about, basically makes what you would think is like a racist joke toward Bryson Gray about black people stealing his bike. And they start feuding, getting back and forth into this. And then they decide that they're going to have an actual conversation live in this recorded space, about it. And during the course of the conversation, this guy, Owen, Owen says, like, no, my bike was stolen May 24th, 1991. And the guy Bryson's like, he's like, no way, that's my birthday. He's like, no, I'm not kidding. My bike was actually stolen on this day. That's why I brought it up. And he made this shirt, this meme, saying May 24th, 1991 with a picture of his stolen bike on it, like, because he wanted to get this bike back. And this guy Bryson thought he made it to troll him because his birthday was that same day. And they had like this honestly comedic moment, and after that they became best friends. And it was just like that's it. That's one of those little cosmic threads where kind of God throws us a little bit of an Easter egg, and we get a glimpse in his sense of humor. And it was just a funny comedic moment. And I think we often have experiences like that, and I think we can miss them if we're not paying attention. We can miss them, but I think they're happening all the time, and we just don't pay attention.
We're that guy in the hole, just
Yeah.
not accepting that hand sometimes. That sometimes, you know what, sometimes you just gotta accept it, go with it, and see where that's gonna take you. It's difficult sometimes to just kind of let yourself go and just. I think that word faith and just having faith in anything is always somewhat tough, because I think humans sometimes are pragmatic, and that we need evidence. We need evidence that this is going to work. Is that and just doing podcasting and stuff. Even trying to work with other people. There's that thing that I try. It's like, yo, just let yourself go. That, like, this is supposed to be for you. You got to be able to let yourself go and not be afraid of the people watching you, because right now they're not watching you. And don't worry if they do. Like, you're gonna get negative comments. That's just how life works. But within those, you're also gonna get positives. And doing all that, like, I've gotten a lot of hate for certain episodes that I've done, definitely. But I've also gotten a lot of love from other episodes and stuff like that. That it's like, there's gonna be good and bad with everything. I think I had a conversation with the guy that does my theme music, and we said this is like the worst thing is having the fear of not even trying.
Yeah.
Like, just not trying. Like, that to me is always I think that is, to me, the ultimate sin of just not trying. You just kind of gave up before you even gave an effort, and because you miss out on so much. And I look back in my life, and I realized, yeah, I've missed out on so much because I just was stuck in this mindset of giving up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to that. So I've put myself in this place where, yeah, I'm going to rub some people the wrong way. And there's some people who I have great love and respect for that probably don't have it back for me now. And that's okay. I don't hate them for it. I'm not mad at them. My hope is that maybe one day they actually want to have a real conversation with me, because it's not like I've shut them off. I haven't blocked them on social media or anything like that. They'll see everything that I do and all that. My phones are always open. Even if you've hurt me or something, if you want to have a real conversation, I'll do it. I mean, I've had people call me at like 2 a.m. Kind of, definitely not of a sober mindset, just to talk to me. And it's just like, okay. And I will talk to them, and and I'll just be like, okay, cool. But I know probably when they sober up, I'm not going to hear anything from them again. And I realize that's just it's in those moments of their weakness, they got to reach out, and I want to always be available for that, regardless of how they may feel or what they may think of me. That's my service. That's me giving back. Because you don't look for anything. I'm not looking for anything from anybody. I'm just hoping for the best for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a good mentality to have, man. And I like what you said about kind of taking those leaps of faith, and I think that's essential for us to grow in life. I don't think I would have accomplished anything in life without stepping into kind of the unknown, and trusting that God's got my back and He's not going to let me fail. And even if I do fail, he'll pick me up, and we'll do it again. And no great person, at least our fathers of faith, did anything worth talking about without first doing something scary or something unknown. I think of Peter, stepping out of the boat in the midst of the storm, man. Jesus, I don't know if you know this story. Jesus walking
Yeah,
along
yeah.
the water, and he calls Peter to step out of the boat. And he doesn't say, "I have faith." He steps out. He puts his faith in the action, and he steps out into what any sane person would say, like, "You're crazy. What are you doing? You're going to drown." And he takes a step of faith, and God shows up. And it's that moment he starts to doubt, where he starts to sink. And I think it's like a
He
good
looks down and he,
reminder to us to keep our eyes fixed on God, and keep our eyes fixed on where he's leading us. And he's not going to let us drown. He's not going to let us get in over our head. And that's kind of brought me great solace. So I try to couple my faith with actions, because faith without works is dead. It doesn't mean anything if you're not actually taking that step, and showing that you're willing to take a risk and take a chance.
before I let you go, I wanted to leave two things, and I, of course, will let you get your final word and thoughts on these. The first one being that you're talking about Peter. I don't know, it's my favorite apostle was Thomas.
Okay.
Not just because he had a great name, not because he had a great
Yeah,
name,
it's yeah, I see the
but
parallels.
because he was called the doubtful Thomas. And for
Yeah.
me, he was the most human apostle, in a sense of like, he had to wait until Jesus. He stuck. He was there the entire time. He was there the entire way. But even then, it wasn't until he saw Jesus resurrected that he fully was in like that. He always had these kind of doubts. That's why he's the doubtful Thomas and whatnot. So that was always one that I look back and I was like, oh, yeah, that's the one I can relate with, because all these other ones, they just seem to be in there. Besides Judas, Judas had his things, but we could get into a crazy thing. Was Judas maybe perhaps the most loyal or something like that? There's plenty of stories with that, which is like whole nother conversation. And we'll have that at another time or something. The other thing uh, was that I feel that when it comes to just living and enjoying life and finding that peace, that I think deep down we all want that peace of mind, of soul, of everything. Part of that is kind of letting go of our conceptions of what this world is, what it is, and be open to the things that maybe make us uncomfortable. And for
Yeah.
a lot of people, maybe religion, and maybe all these other things. But you need to open yourself to have those conversations. That's why I'm grateful for you to have this conversation. And it's like, and having those conversations, I've found myself tearing up quite a bit during this. It's an emotional conversation for me to just like open up, and that's part of what I wanted to do for this podcast now. Is just to have those realness. So from me to you, I'd like to say, I'm grateful for your openness and being willing to take those hits. I see you on social media. You take those hits, but you just keep going. And whether I agree with everything or not, I'm one of those people that always admire someone that just speaks their mind. And I will never shun anybody for that, for anything. So props to you. Do you have anything else that you would like to say? Or
Yeah, thank you, man. And I appreciate having the opportunity to share again. It's been a hot minute, man, since I've shared anything about my past, and for a lot of different reasons, and lately I've been feeling like God has been telling me to share my story, and I've been really resistant of it. One of these areas where I'm just like, man, I don't want to. Like, people are gonna weaponize this against me. And I felt as clear as day. He's like, no, this is something that you have to do. I was like, all right, I'm gonna be obedient. I'm gonna step out. I'm gonna do it. And I made a kind of decision that every opportunity I get to share my story, which is ironic that you even invited me to do this. I'm gonna share it, um, because I know that there's something redeemable about what God has done in my life, not just for my benefit, but for the benefit of other people. And I've already had somebody reach out to me and thank me, or several people thank me for sharing kind of what I've been through, and and how God has kind of brought me to the other side. And my encouragement for people listening is that you can really have a relationship with Jesus. I know that sounds cliche, um, but it's the truth, man. And I think it's staring a lot of us in the face, and we don't want to see it. And I think that if we humble ourselves, if we actually spend time reading the Bible for what it says, not taking my word for it, not taking your preacher's word for it, but actually see for yourself. Be that doubting Thomas, and be willing to put your fingers through through the holes in Christ's hands. See for yourself, and you will see that the truth is staring you right in the face, and that God has an adventure for your life. And I really believe that, an adventure. And that's what this faith journey is. It's an adventure. And for me, it's been the adventure of a lifetime. And it's not over, man. Far from it. I believe my best days are still ahead of me. I see God working wonders in my life, and doing things. I'm living out moments now that I only ever dreamed of. One of my dreams. This is not like a typical dream for like a kid, but my dream as a kid growing up was to be a dad, and to be a husband. Like, that is what I wanted more than anything. And 8-year-olds, they're dreaming of being pilots or soldiers or whatever. I wanted to be a husband and a father. And I wake up, and I'm living that reality right now, and I'm so grateful. And it's not just that, it's more, man. God is giving me a little bit more influence, and giving me opportunities that I never thought I would have. And it's just kind of a really cool spot to be in right now. And it's not lost on me. It's not lost on me that God has blessed me with people who actually listen to what I have to say. That that I don't take that lightly. And it's a really humbling experience, and I'm just very grateful for it, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I just thank you, Tom. I thank you for this chance to talk, and I'm glad we did it, man.
No problem. Like I said, thank you again. Even if I post clips of me talking to strippers sometimes, you were willing to come on here and stuff. So, I'm always grateful. I'm always happy to have conversations. And it was a long time coming. Like I said, it was the first one. I enjoyed the conversation, but like I said, we were limited, and I wanted to have a little more deeper conversation with you. So I am grateful for you for that. So, at this time, if let the people know they want to know more, they want to hear more from you, where they can find you and whatnot, and what you're doing.
Yeah, you can. Well, it depends. If you want my really hot takes, you can follow my Twitter. If you don't want to hate me, definitely do not follow my Twitter. So that's rcam_TV. But I typically do post on YouTube, and I think and Rumble. So YouTube is rcam.tv. Honestly, if you just type rcam.tv, just that, into your browser, there's links to all my pages. So that's probably the easiest way to find me.
And don't worry, folks, there will be, of course, links in the description, the YouTube, and on the audio podcast of this. And of course, for me, you guys know, you guys are listening or watching this. Please hit that like and subscribe. And of course, you guys can follow me at the Tommy Tom 88, and of course on Instagram at Tommy Tom P88 on there. And Ryan, once again, thank you for doing this. Give the best to the family and everybody. And we'll catch you all next time.